Welcome to Grandma's Wealth Wisdom with your hospitable hosts, Brandon and Amanda Neely. This is the only podcast for strategies to grow your wealth simply and sustainably, like Grandma used to. Without further ado, here are your hosts.
Hi, I'm Amanda, and welcome to Grandma's Wealth Wisdom, where we help you build wealth Grandma would be proud of.
Hey, and I'm Brandon. I've got a question for you today, Amanda. Do you ever feel like you're living in the future of Back to the Future 2?
What do you mean, Brandon?
You know, like Biff is president and the Cubs actually won the World Series. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Interesting.
I mean, like right now, in our time in history, the only thing we're really missing are self-driving jackets and hoverboards.
And the cars that fly through the air.
Oh, yeah. Who's really missing those? I mean, like, hopefully we don't ever get those invented because
it's dangerous enough with the cars on the ground. If they were flying through the air, life would just be scary.
I mean, for me, I just think in Back to the Future, Biff, the president, was built up after Donald Trump. And he actually became president in 1985 or so, whatever I think it was.
No, that's when it was like recorded in the 80s.
Or so, I don't remember.
He becomes president in 2015.
Oh, yeah, it was 2015.
30 years
right.
in the future.
It's been a little while. In some of those TV shows, Biff becomes, or Donald Trump is president. Actually, in The Simpsons, he's president.
Was he president in The Simpsons?
Yeah, he was president in one of the future episodes.
Oh, okay.
So,
well, I just remember recently I was watching a rerun of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and Donald Trump was there as the real estate guy coming in to buy the Bel-Air residence of Uncle Phil or whatever his name was. But of course, then it ended up being the wrong house, and he was going to buy the house next door, so they're able to stay in their home.
I think he was an Alf, too. I remember watching Alf because we have our mother-in-law that lives with us, and she loves that show. So he was mentioning Donald Trump quite a few times in Alf.
It really, wow. And then I remember last Christmas, I rewatched Home Alone 2 with Macaulay Culkin, where he goes to New York City and he goes to this fancy hotel there, whatever it was called. And you see him walking down in the lobby and he sees this really rich guy and he says hi, and the rich guy says hi back. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Donald Trump right there in Home Alone 2. It's sort of become the token billionaire in all of these episodes, regardless whether he's president or not in them. He becomes like the token rich guy.
Yeah, I think that's why he was coined in some of those movies as the president, because he was the token rich guy.
Yeah. And, we don't want to get into politics with this episode, even with this title. Not everyone wants to be like Donald Trump. Grandma's not getting political.
Hopefully we won't, but maybe.
We're not getting political. In fact, this phrase, not everyone wants to be like Donald Trump, was coined long before Donald Trump was running for office. And we want to tell you the story of where it comes from. So we had just opened our coffee house, our first business. It was 2011 for some perspective. And we were, just trying to get it up and running, figuring things out. And one of our customers tells us that she had recommended to her reporter friend to come and do a story about us because she thought we were really great and unique and it would be an interesting thing for their newspaper or magazine or whatever it was. She didn't give us any of the details, but we're like, thanks, okay. And we didn't think anything of it. We honestly didn't think anyone was going to come.
And we were working like crazy. It was just you and me. We didn't even have staff at the time.
We had a couple friends that were kind of helping with the anticipation that we'd pay them at some point in the future.
One day we would pay them.
Yeah, but it was the beginning of the business. We didn't even think about it. And then one day, this guy walks in and he's a reporter with Time Out Chicago, the magazine. And he wants to do a story on us. And he tells us it's because one of your customers told me I should. And we're like, oh my gosh, she was actually really serious. We're not prepared. This is all of a sudden out of the blue. He just starts asking us questions. They brought along a photographer to take some pictures of us. We're just like, okay, we got to do this. This is a great opportunity.
We're not ready at all. No, for sure.
We just did our best. We answered their questions. And then the article comes out. And we rush to the local newsstand and we buy a whole bunch of copies and we read it. And we come across what Brandon said. You never know what Brandon's going to say.
Yeah, I do kind of speak my mind. And if you know me, I will tell you what I think.
So I'm going to have Brandon read to you what this reporter wrote down that he said during this interview.
Again, 2011. So I said,
Quote,
it's not... It's not much.
Brandon admits.
Meaning the money that we were making.
Yeah, it's not much.
It's not much. But making tons of money and being Donald Trump isn't everyone's dream. It certainly isn't our goal. I'd rather work towards something that is going to have a positive effect on other people's lives. That's exactly what I said in that article in 2011. Not everyone wants to be a multi-billionaire is kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah. Many people have goals that are about more than just accumulating money. Not everyone wants to be Donald Trump. Not everyone wants to be a multi-billionaire. A lot of us have goals that are about more than just money and getting wealthy. We want to do things like spend quality time with those we love. We want to not worry about any kind of major crisis that might come our way.
Which I find funny. Donald Trump himself said that if he happened to be impeached, the stock market would probably crash. And that's pretty scary for me. But it's what happens when too much wealth is in the hands of too few people. Power gets centralized.
But we don't want to get political. Again, we're trying to stay away from that.
Oh, yeah.
But
Sorry.
It is a reality that stock market crashes do happen. And some of us just want to be in a place where we don't have to worry of if that's going to happen or not. There's even a lot of us who our goal is really about being charitable, being able to support the causes that we care about deeply. And we want to have enough wealth in order to be able to do that and really make an impact in the ways we want to be able to make that impact. Maybe your goals in life are as simple as not being in debt now or ever again, that you never have to owe someone else money. That's a great goal. And you don't have to have $1 billion in order to be able to accomplish that kind of goal.
And that doesn't mean we want to live in poverty either, that we don't want to just live as maybe a poor person. We want to live an okay life.
Grandma always said, eat your vegetables. She loved making home-cooked meals with healthy food and from-scratch desserts. Would you create a diet of fast food or cookie-cutter financial products that made you fat and bloated with fees? Or would you like wholesome, time-honored wealth strategies served with balance and trust? Get started with your healthy money planning by downloading Wholesome Wealth Recipes. Your Moolah cookbook is waiting for you at grandmaswealth.com.
Many of us, we still have goals. We still have things we want to accomplish, and those things can take money. In addition to spending time with those we love, maybe we want to travel the world and experience other cultures and sort of enrich our own lives through those experiences. Maybe we don't want to be in debt, but we also don't want our kids to have to go into debt in order to get an education either. It goes beyond just our own lives in terms of the goals that we have.
For sure.
Or when the inevitable tire blows out or the medical emergency happens, we want to be able to cover it without any fear. Forget the stock market crash. What about the crash of our car or, something like that? We want to be able to be ready for those things and not have to worry. And we want to feel like our lives matter, that we're making that difference. And if we're in poverty, it's really hard to help others that are also in poverty, monetarily speaking, to come out of that and, be able to experience life, and have some control and freedom in that. And of course, it does not take $1 billion to do all this. If you did everything we just listed, it doesn't take $1 billion. But if we're scraping at the bottom of the barrel every month, we're unlikely to ever be able to do any of this. We're unlikely to ever be able to get ahead in terms of finances within our lives.
And that's why we like Grandma and want to be more like her. I think she would actually have said this quote if it wasn't me saying this quote. Not that I'm Grandma, but...
But you want to be like Grandma.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Maybe your grandma said something similar to you. Maybe it wasn't specifically, not everyone wants to be like Donald Trump. But maybe when you were a kid, you wanted to, be like so-and-so. You wanted to keep up with the Joneses or, be like the football star or the lead cheerleader, those kind of stereotypes. And I didn't really want to be like that, but maybe it was, you wanted to be like Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, who knows, whoever you looked up. Maybe your grandma had a heart-to-heart with you and just said, maybe that's not the kind of person that you really want to be. If you look deep down, you have to make your own goals goals. You have to figure out your own path and, sort of set your own aspirations and not try to be like someone else, to be your own person. That's really what we're talking about here. Not everyone wants to be like Donald Trump. Not everyone wants to be like, XYZ person. You want to be your true self and go after what you really aspire to and have goals for.
Yeah, I think for sure that's the way. Whenever I said that, I feel like my grandma was kind of sharing on my behalf, or something like that. It was kind of,
you were sharing from the influence she had on you.
Yeah, for sure. But I think grandma is wise as a serpent.
Yeah, if we want to be like anybody, grandma's a great person to try to be like.
Yeah,
that we want to be
she
like.
She was wise. I know mine was. And she knows if you're living paycheck to paycheck that you're not going to be able to make the impact that you want. In fact, your children and grandchildren might end up having to take care of you, not vice versa.
Yeah, and grandma might not have access to creating $1 million. That might not be something she's able to do within her lifetime, but that's why she was still super savvy with her money. It's not because she wanted to be like Donald Trump either. It's because she has unique goals and concerns. They're different goals and concerns than we have, but she had them, and she made sure that she gained financial wisdom because she wanted to be able to create her own path and keep control of her future, especially financially, but also in all other realms, which money, is required in order to create your own path and keep control of your future in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I think definitely for us, money was required in some of this. And I want to share how we were kind of like grandma with our social enterprise as we were getting started in our business.
Yeah, we've aspired to be like grandma for a long time. And our first business was one way that we tried to be like grandma.
Yeah, we wanted to actually create grandma's front porch. Again, I'm from the South, so people connected with each other, they talked with each other, and they talked over food and drink. And we also thought about ethical economics and buying ethical coffee and how ethical economics and community building can come together. Like how both of those things don't have to be separate, but together they can really change the world. So we were taking care with all the details. Everything was hand-picked, just like grandma would do. It took time. It took effort. We made sure that we did quality coffee and quality pastries, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they tasted good, but we also thought about the sourcing, where they came from, and made sure people were cared for along the supply chain.
Yeah, it was not so much about making money as making an impact for the farmers and for, again, our local community. That's what we were creating with our social enterprise.
Yeah, kind of what we thought grandma would do if she were to do the same kind of thing. And even today, we're trying to be like grandma in this financial sector that we have kind of found ourselves in.
Yeah, it's kind of strange how we ended up from coffee to
money.
This, but,
yeah.
But it's, again, moving this grandma idea into this sector.
Yeah, and we want to be like grandma in terms of how we help people with their money plans. We want to, look very detail oriented and carefully craft alongside people. We want you to carefully craft it, and we want to walk alongside you as you, set your goals, and we help you figure out how to go after those goals in a way that, you can do without having to become a billionaire in the process. And we do that through taking the time to actually have a conversation, to be personal. Yeah, to build relationships that will last for a long time and will, continue to stay in touch, not disappear right after the deal is done. Grandma would never do that, that we want to, kind of do this financial stuff like grandma would do it. And also in more ways than one, in terms of how we operate, and then also in terms of how we help people, because it's not so much about making money as impacting generations for the better. That's the kind of perspective that grandma has, that it's really about what kind of legacy are we leaving for ourselves and for our children and for our grandchildren and beyond. And what does it look like to create a financial plan with that in mind?
Yeah, I think that's exactly on point, Amanda. That's why we got into this, and knowing how this has helped us and how it's helped our business and how it's helped even our son and even our mother-in-law. All this stuff has really benefited us. And we want to be that grandma, help those people, help them achieve those things that, aren't just going after being the rich guy, but how are we living a sustainable life?
Yeah, so we want to ask these kinds of questions as we round out today. What are your unique financial goals? Have you really thought about that? What do you want to accomplish financially? Do you want to be the next Donald Trump? Do you want to...
I don't think I do. I didn't say that.
Right. You don't. Yeah. You already said that in 2011. You can't change your mind now.
Nope.
Do you want, maybe instead, do you want to keep life simple and down to earth where you don't have as much responsibility and things to worry about? Kind of keeping it simple, having the, smaller house so you have less to clean or, stuff like that. How can you still build enough wealth to create your own path, to still have control over your financial future where you're not going to have to go back into debt or depend on your children or worry about, this thing or that thing happening, but still have enough wealth that you're not going to be dependent on anybody else. All of these kinds of questions and how you answer them, it's very unique to every person. And that's why no matter what you do, we believe that you should think about and seriously consider working with someone who really takes the time to understand your goals and takes the time to carefully craft a safe strategy for building wealth that's unique, it's personalized for you, and is going to impact your own future as well as the future of your children and grandchildren.
It's almost like building that apple pie that grandma, it took time.
Yeah, you got to roll out the dough, you got to cut the apples, maybe even grew the apples in your backyard. It takes a long time, right? So no matter who helps you with creating your personal strategy, your personal financial strategy, keep asking yourself, what would grandma do? And maybe take this outside of just your money. Take this to your dinner table. Take this to how you spend your time, what you do. What would grandma do? And if you don't have a grandma that you can think of what she would do, use the grandma of Grandma's Wealth Wisdom, with a grandma that we've been talking about in this podcast and will continue to be talking about and telling her stories. What would she do? What would grandma do? And maybe if that sort of rings in your ear as you go forward, then we feel like we've done our job, that you've been thinking in those terms. And of course, if you want help with figuring out what grandma would do, if you're not sure, especially with financial strategies, we'd love to talk to you and set up a phone call with us, even just 15 minutes, that we can hear a little bit of your story, start to build that relationship. We want this to be a two-way conversation, not just us putting these episodes out there, but really starting to talk back and forth. So go to grandmaswealth.com and you can find out more about how to schedule a meeting with us there.
So in next week's episode 10, we're going to talk about getting your plan in order for when a financial apocalypse comes.
Dun, dun, dun.
Could you survive a major money catastrophe?
Uh-oh.
I hope so. Tune in to next week's episode for what it takes to survive and maybe, just maybe, even thrive.
Until next time, keep building your wealth simply and sustainably for your own future and the future of our grandchildren's generation.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.